Demand is flatter and we're seeing rates holding up. So it's not all doom and gloom at all. It's not the heydays post-COVID where there was lots of demand and not enough supply and you could pop your rates and hold firm and be confident that the booking would come in. Now we're saying we need to be really dialed into your particular market, understand your portfolio, and you've just got to work a bit harder to get those bookings coming in.
What is happening in the UK's short-term rental industry? Are late bookings the new normal? Will rates improve in the lead up to Christmas? And why are OTAs like Airbnb and Booking.com dominating the STR landscape? Sally Henry from Key Data will be answering all these questions and more on today's House Planet podcast. Sally, thank you for joining us on the Host Planet podcast. The latest UK Key Data Index is out. We covered it in a recent newsletter, and this line stuck out to me. The broader outlook points to a low growth environment where pricing and channel strategy are critical to sustaining performance. Tell us, what's happening in the UK's STR industry in 2025?
Alrighty, well, James, thank you so much for having me again. So, yeah, our index report is out, and again, it is industry averages, but there's some huge trends that we're seeing that I would urge all property managers or hosts operating in short-term rental industry in the UK to read this and take notes to understand what some of these market demands are that are coming through. So what we mean by that is like the index report is measuring how, what revenue or what demand is coming through compared to last year or last month, and we're seeing it pretty flat. So what that really means is demand is flat, or it's flatter than we've seen. So our occupancy is either slightly depressed or flat, which means that if you're a property manager or a host, your share of any demand is becoming a bit more marginal. So demand is flatter, and we're seeing rates holding up. So it's not all doom and gloom at all. There will be some property managers and hosts who are outperforming the market and getting more than their fair share of this demand. But it means that effectively it's not the heydays post-COVID where there was lots of demand and not enough supply and you could, pop your rates and hold firm and be confident that the booking would come in. Now we're saying we need to be really dialed into your particular market, understand your portfolio, what you're expecting to come in, and you've just got to work a bit harder to get those bookings coming in. The market is still there. But it's you needing to use more tools than ever to make sure you grab your demand of that market. And to your point, I know we'll get onto this. It's coming in later. So how do you arm yourself with the right information to be able to have the confidence to either talk to your peers, your company, or your homeowners to say, this is what we're expecting to come in. Don't you worry. We understand. We can see what's happening. Hold firm, hold your nerve. So it's a flatter market, James, is what we're saying now. So there is room to go and grab that demand, but it is harder than it has ever been.
Okay, real talk now for all you hosts out there. You know that moment when your guest messages you again with, hey, what's the Wi-Fi code? Or you're staring at 5 different calendars, wondering if you've accidentally double booked the cottage. Yes, we've all been there. That's why here at Host Planet, we recommend Hostfully. It's basically your rentals control center. It handles bookings across all the big platforms, syncs your calendars to ensure there are no double bookings, automates guest messages, and even creates these really slick digital guidebooks that stop all the repeat questions. Honestly, it just makes your life easier and keeps your guests happier, helping you achieve those all-important 5-star reviews. And here is a little bonus. If you're a Host Planet listener, you can get $500 off onboarding for Hostfully's property management software and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. Just hit the link in the show notes and use the codes PLANET500 for the PMS and HostPlanetGB for the guidebooks. And if you'd like a proper walkthrough, there's also a link to book a demo with Frank Bosey from Hostfully. He will show you how it all works. Less stress, more bookings, sorted with Hostfully. You referenced it there, and it's something that we led with in the newsletter. We said, is later bookings the new normal? I've only got a couple of properties, but this is something that I've seen over and over again, certainly the last year or two, is that people are booking on the day before, very late to when they arrive.
Yeah. So it's probably depends on a couple of things. Depends what sort of property you have. Obviously, if you have a property that is very scarce in supply, so either really large, amazing sea views or something where you can command that earlier booker, then you should still be able to command that booker that is planning in advance. But if you are just, I suppose if your portfolio is one that has adequate supply around, consumers are waiting longer. They're not making their decisions as early. They're waiting before they book. They're hoping that prices will come down. And I think it also, if you just look around the macro and geopolitical factors that everyone is getting hit with at the moment, people are just holding out a little before they're making those decisions. Some of it is we're waiting for the budget in the UK, and I don't think anyone's expecting us to feel flush after that with additional money in the pocket. But equally, people are discerning with how they're spending it, and effectively, it's probably two traits rolled into one. If you're going away and you sort of say, right, I want somewhere for this weekend, it could be weather related. It could just be we have the time, or you feel confident that you have the disposable income. But if you're going like close to it, you're probably going to book for shorter. You're not quite as dialed into where you're staying. So it's more spontaneous. So the market is there. How do you grab that? But some of that really pre-planned element of booking isn't as nailed in. So some of the habits we used to always see are not quite as prevalent now. And it's just how we manifest and change to make sure that we can adapt to that and change those expectations for when these bookings are coming in.
You mentioned before as well that rates are holding or even increasing a little bit. Anecdotally, from speaking to people in the industry, this seems to be because costs have gone up everywhere, mortgages, energy bills, all that kind of thing. And hosts and property managers are thinking, well, if I am going to get a booking, I'm going to make sure that it's worth my while. Is this more to do with it than any kind of other market forces?
I think that's really important. I think you have to decide what are you willing to sell your short break or week for? What are your costs that you factor in? But I think it's this blend of the way people book, and we know there is a contracting and a pressure on prices as you get closer to departure, because okay, we want to catch that late booking. But a lot of the OTAs are capturing the late bookings, and they're very good at serving the right prices, the right properties to that search demand. And they also have their promotions. So that's almost helping capture the guest, but it's also pressuring those prices down as well, which is why I think we're seeing people hold their nerve a little longer, especially as we're heading into the autumn. Those rates are holding up. But that's really the only thing pushing revenue up for companies and for hosts at the moment, because occupancy is pretty flat. So to be able to push up their revenue or RevPAR, they need to hold those rates firm. And it takes discipline to make sure you are holding them. But I think as long as hosts and property managers are making a conscious decision as to, are they willing to drop their rates? Could they have dropped their rates? You don't want to look back and wish you'd done something. But I think making a decision for what's right for your property is fine. It's just arm yourself with the right information so you understand what the market forces are demanding, shall we say.
So in a low growth environment, then, what are the top pricing and channel strategy mistakes that you're seeing? And what are the top fixes that you think hosts should be implementing this quarter?
Yeah, I think we use the word in the report, using price agility. Things are changing daily. And again, I've been traveling quite a lot lately, speaking to a lot of property managers, and they're saying they are getting same day arrival bookings. So the first of all is, have you opened up your inventory to be booked late? Can you accept the super late bookings, and do you want to? Another is, we're seeing this length of stay contracting. So make sure you've priced for shorter lengths of stay. So even if you don't want to accept a one night booking, you can still price it as a 2 or 3 night, but make sure you're going onto the channels and making sure you get those eyeballs on, because some people do search. Some people are lazy and they search 1 night or 2 nights because that's really what they'd like. So it's not always price based. Sometimes it's people don't want to stay as long as some of those minimum length of stays that have been set. So it's all about making sure you can stand out in a very crowded marketplace. So some of it is price, some of it is, are you visible and available to be returning results, if you like, for guests and what they're searching for. And the other is, make sure you've optimized your listing, which sounds crazy. And I think I said it last time I was on, like, mystery shop yourself. Have you got the best description? Have you got all your reviews attached to your property? Have you got the best photos? Have you switched your photos for different seasons? Have you put a photo in of your pet if it's pet friendly, or kids if it's kid friendly? So I think there's an awful lot of the way people search as well is changing. So trying to give as much to the description of your properties is where you should also invest to stand out. So.
Yeah. I'm going to give a couple of shout outs here. Like in terms of visibility there, so Bart Jan Lates from AutoRank, he said, even if you don't want to offer one night stays, make them available, put them at $10,000 a night, because you'll have more visibility on the OTAs. And for the rest of the time, when your price is a lot lower, you'll get rewarded for being a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And then Alex Huesner from Alex and Annie podcast over in the States, she said she was on a panel recently and she asked the big property managers there, when was the last time you tried booking your own place through your own direct booking website? And all of them said, I haven't done it. So that's maybe a place to start, look at your own booking flow and see what improvements can be made. Another interesting theme in the report is the continued OTA dominance. Airbnb and Booking.com continuing to grow, often at the expense of direct bookings. Yeah. What's happening?
Exactly that. I mean, I hear an awful lot of talk about we need to do more direct. So amongst property management companies in particular, they're like, we want more direct. The data is showing that that's not happening. They're still losing share to the OTAs, and the OTA growth, Booking.com and Airbnb in particular, is prevalent all around. So what are they doing wrong? Probably nothing, but how can they compete against some of these huge platforms that are adapting all the right policies to understand how consumers are wanting to sort of book our product? They're excellent at surfacing the right content to them, the right properties. They're very smart. They're using AI to deal with all the boring stuff, and they're coming good and focused. They're also spending an awful lot on brand marketing. They're doing the sponsorship of the Olympics and the football, and they are helping raise the bar of short-term rentals for us as an industry. But it also means that they are really focused on giving that guest a seamless checkout, taking away those pain points, making it almost a one-click. It's a bit like when I go on Amazon and buy something every day. It's like it's too easy. But they're trying to almost get to that place where it's just super easy. They've got the trust of many guests. So how to compete against that is difficult. If I was a property manager, I'd be really focused on the local side of things. So how do they really write up genuine, authentic content around their property, their location, surfacing the best bakeries and the things that you don't necessarily get at that broader level? So I would be really dialed into, one, welcome the guest when they arrive, and can you convert them to a long-time booker into your brand? But also that authentic angle, because the way people search is going to change, as we all know, through AI, and people might type in, I want XYZ in a way that's not as curated as it is now, much freer. So I do think that property managers and hosts can actually go out and try and really focus on the bit they're brilliant at, which is hosting in person in a small environment that they know. They know it, authentically, as opposed to being a number on a large platform, because they'll struggle to compete there.
Yeah, I mean, content visibility with AI large language models like ChatGPT is going to get so much more important. And I think, your visibility as a property manager, you need to be seen on different platforms and being cited there. And this might be, local news websites. It might be the local chamber of commerce, social media channels. So those citations and mentions on other sites are just going to get more and more important, even more important than they are now with Google backlinks and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely something to focus on. What's a realistic direct OTA channel mix do you think that managers should be targeting? Is there a sweet spot as we get towards 2026?
It's really hard, because we have some clients that are 100% direct. I have some clients that are 100% OTA. I think it depends on the nature of your business. So if you are focused on, for example, all the operation and the cleaning, that's maybe where your focus is and where you add the most value in the service you're providing for your homeowners, versus do you have a sweet spot of a marketing who are really specialized in it? So I think it's about understanding. I think one of the preconceptions is that direct is free. And unfortunately, it's not. It takes investment. So whether it's investment in content, in SEO, in Google paid search, it isn't free. So one is understand what your channel cost is would be the first thing. So you have your commission, versus whatever your direct booking cost is. And then work out where you want to focus, because you might be happy to use the channels for really late bookings and say, look, you're not going to be out there on keywords for the really late stuff. You want to try and bring in that earlier. So I would say understand the value of each booking, understand your channels. So some channels may bring in a booking first. Can you convert them to a lifetime value when they book again with you twice? Because then you should be baking that back into your cost, your if you like, your commission costs. So I would urge a healthy mix is probably the safest way to put it. Have every lever you have ready to push, or push and pull, because as you're getting into a late market, you might really need those OTAs to bring in that late demand, because you may be trying to just get occupancy up for owners. You might be in a different life cycle for your business, and actually you don't want the occupancy, you're just chasing the revenue. So everyone will be at a slightly different life stage in terms of what they need. So I think have a mix and understand the value that each channel brings to you, and make sure you are using the channels, not letting the channels dictate what you do. Make sure you're dictating what happens on those channels.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Direct bookings are not free. And, that 15.5% that you give into Airbnb or 18% that you give into booking.com, if you're spending that getting direct bookings, then there's a genuine question is there a point to this if it's costing you more to get the direct bookings than it would be from the OTAs? What are we looking at in terms of rates then for the rest of 2025? I don't know if you've got much data about where we're looking kind of early 2026. What should hosts and property managers expect to see for the price of their rentals?
At the moment, they're holding stronger. So as we get closer, rates are holding. They always come down as we get closer. We see that in the data. But I think rate discipline is really important, and knowing the value and what are your operational costs for some of these shorter breaks. Have you priced accordingly? So, adjusting your rates to understand what any additional costs might be is really important as well. So rates are holding firm right now, and they will come under pressure. You'll know yourself, judging by what is around you and what your portfolio mix is can you hold those strong? We know as a later market coming in, versus do you need to be more competitive? So again, it's about understanding the landscape. I'd be looking to October half term. I'd be seeing what the weather looks like, seeing what's happening in the world, see what the budget's coming out. So there's lots of different factors to weigh up to say, do you need to be, it's a price sensitive market, do you need to be more competitive for your area with your portfolio to do your rates? But just be aware, make the decision, don't look back and say, I wish I'd done something.
We've mentioned the booking windows shortening, and it's something I think everybody in the UK and probably globally has been experiencing. What tactics do you think move the needle the most? Is it length of stay, discounts, flexible cancellation, mobile only offers, last minute packages? What can help you get those bookings, do you think?
Any mix. I mean, the holy grail is to get the early bookings because they stay longer and they pay more. So that tends to be through your direct channels. Or if you look at Verbo as a channel, they have the highest ADR, the longest length of stay and the longest booking window. So look for other channels that can potentially add that value to your booking mix. Obviously making sure you've utilised all your own channels coming through, which I know it sounds crazy, but have you gone out to every guest and said, you booked this time last year, you'd already booked, we've got some great offers. Do you want to do some early bird? Because even if you offered a small discount for early bird, it would probably be less than the contracting that would come onto your rates for a late booker. So I think, again, it's understanding what is right for your portfolio. But again, some channels bring in the earlier bookers, find those. So Verbo is definitely one of them. There'll potentially be some other partnerships that you can tie up with. And then the other is, have you utilised your own assets as strongly as you can with some of those earlier bookings? Because that is in your control to go out and speak to those guests. And also educate your owners, right? So as long as your owners are on board and they understand what the market is expected and you just keep them educated, that's part of it. I think a lot of the pressure from owners becomes very real, and then you go and chase the rates to try and get that occupancy to tick the box because you want to keep, retain all your owners. So some of it is about an honest conversation about what the market is dictating right now as well.
What are we expecting from Christmas and New Year? These are times where we expect to get decent bookings and decent rates. And how should hosts and property managers be preparing for this time of year?
what we'd expect right now is some of those larger properties will be booked up already because people are having to plan to get multiple families together and generations. And the same with New Year. I leave it every year for New Year, and I'm not surprised I can't find something for 15 of us. And it's like, okay, I'm in the industry. It's my own fault. Again, I think understand how the holiday season falls for you in your area with your local schools. Like, have you got the right days? So your start dates might have to adapt to make sure you can capture some of that demand. And again, it's a price conscious time. So obviously all the imagery around getting everyone together and open fires and surfacing some local content of you're near the local pub, or these are brilliant winter walks. Bring it to life for people. It's give them that inspiration to book, because some people will be very curtailed. They go, I need to go to a certain destination because we're getting a family together, and they'll be very certain about what they need, and it needs a number of bedrooms, versus let's inspire people to get away and have that family connect time.
You mentioned in the report as well that STRs are outperforming hotels regionally, especially in Scotland and Wales. So what's unique about those markets? I think I've got an idea.
Oh, I mean, if you look at the whole hotel, I think it was Q2 arrivals. So I think RevPAR for hotels was down -7 across the UK, which, is in contrast to what we're managing to have positive RevPAR in short-term rentals. And some of it is around affordability, about authentic, enjoying it sort of an authentic. And it's also around supply. So what supply is there in a particular location? And how should the market be reacting to attract that guest? If you look at Wales in particular, obviously homeowners are trying to chase that 6 months occupancy of the year. So they're very dialed in, and they're savvy, and they're using data to understand how they need to reach that threshold. And in Scotland, obviously we've seen short-term rentals, sort of the supply people, losing licenses, so less supply there. So those that are still there are commanding, some of those better rates. So a lot of it is some of the market factors around. But I think generally overall, we are seeing short-term rentals outsupply or outperform short-term rentals.
So simple message then, what's the playbook for maybe the 50 plus property managers whose occupancy and revenue are struggling a little bit? What can they do to turn things around?
Make sure you've got on every channel you can. Make sure you have understood all the pricing in your competitive set. So it could be short-term rentals, it could be other hotels, it could be alternative accommodation as well. So understand your environment, whether it's macro, it could be things you can't do anything about. And then understand your feeder markets and your profile of customer that's coming to book, so that you can say, have the way they consume media changed? Is it a younger demographic that you're bringing? Should you be on some of the social media channels like TikTok and inspiring people, or Instagram? So I think understand your market and understand your potential bookers is really the starting point, because the traveller behaviours are shifting so quickly. And then again, see what's happening on the OTAs. Even if you use them or not, they're a really good ground force to understand what's happening in the market right now.
We will put a link to the report in the show notes, of course. Just before you go, Sally, give us the lowdown on key data.
So we continue to expand. We keep bringing out new dashboards and tools every single week. So the team are very dialed in. We've got 15,000 property managers feeding in who give us feedback. So we're constantly evolving, and we're constantly trying to give tools that help property managers understand what's happening. So some of these things we've talked about, like we have a new one called enhanced benchmarking, which means you can go and see, if we're looking at Cornwall, say which channels are performing in Cornwall. And then you can see how that compares to your own channel performance in Cornwall. Which feeder markets are performing in Cornwall? How does that compare with your own? When are they booking? So are they booking 2 weeks out, 6 months out? Have I missed that boat for that feeder market? So there's a huge amount of data in there that you can access through key data. We try and make you access tools that will help you make decisions for your business.
Superb. And we'll put a link to key data in the show notes as well. Sally, it's been a real pleasure as ever. Thanks for joining us on the Host Planet podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. See you later, James.
Great to chat to Sally Henry there from Key Data. Check the link in the show notes for access to their latest report. All right, that's it for today's show. Remember, this podcast is brought to you in collaboration with Hostfully, which is trusted by short-term rental professionals across the globe. As a House Planet listener, you get 2 exclusive offers. $500 off onboarding for Hostfully's property management software. Just use the code PLANET500 and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. Use the code HostPlanetGB. To grab these deals, click the link in the show notes or head to hostfully.com. For more free education tips and trends for the STR industry, visit houseplanet.club, where you can sign up for our newsletter, listen to our podcasts, and download a suite of ebooks for hosts and property managers. That's it for today's episode. Until next time, happy hosting.